Ladies and gents, I'm Papa Smoke, and thank you for joining me for a very special segment. This is a pilot and debut of a segment I'm going to bring to you called Black Magic Storytime. So, Black Magic Storytime is going to be focused on my experiences over the last decade plus in the paranormal, in the world of witchcraft, in the world of voodoo and dark sorcery and demonolatry and stuff like that. And we're going to discuss encounters that I've had, few creepy stories that have happened as a result from it, and all sorts of things like that. Yeah. If this segment gains traction, then we'll get some of you to write in from home here as well, and we'll discuss those on here too. Okay. Anyways, without any further ado, because this is the debut of the segment, it's time to bring you the origin story of the Papa of Smoke. Okay, so the name Papa Smoke was actually given to me by a Mambo Asogwe. It turns out that I had a teacher, basically, obviously, it turns out I had a teacher, and she was very, very, very good, and she taught me very, very, very well. And as a result, I used to clash with people online who I felt were misleading people or overtalking their abilities or embellishing or making up their manifestations and their gnosis. Because of this, I got into various battles with other professional practitioners, and basically as a nickname, she basically started to call me Papa Smoke or the Papa of Smoke. It was my given name, my pseudonym. Yeah, she called me this because smoke is another name, as you know, for trouble or confrontation. So she was calling me Papa Confrontation or Papa Trouble or the Papa of Trouble. Yeah. Well, let's see where my spirituality began. Okay, so I've always been a believer of spirits. However, I wasn't a very spiritual person or very witchcraft minded until about 2013, 2014. However, that being said, I've always been clairaudient and I've always had some level of psychic gifts. And I spent the first half of my childhood up to about 12, 13 years old living in a Victorian heritage area. For those of you that don't live in England, the Victorian Heritage Area is a historical place where all the buildings are Victorian age or older, and they are preserved that way and kept how they used to look back then, with original fittings and fixtures or as close to aesthetically as you can get, in order to hold the history in of the place. Yeah. Now these places are often steeped with history, which means they're steeped with spirits. Yeah. So I even went to a Victorian school. And when I was in school, I had numerous paranormal instances happen to me. I'd get what I call the flashes. So this is where someone could be speaking to me and images would flash in my head of me doing something or saying something or acting in a certain way. I originally thought this was insanity, but a lot of it was the spirits showing me how they would want me to behave, how they would want me to act or respond, or what they would want me to do, which in most occasions wasn't appropriate, so I didn't do it. In some occasions was quite comical, so I may have done it. And I also got the whispers. Again, I thought I was insane. I thought I was hearing voices when actually I was just hearing spirits whispering to me. And some of the things they were whispering to me, again, some of them were heinous, but most of them were actually quite helpful, quite good, and quite intelligent. So I used to get quite a lot of gnosis. However, because when I was a child, I thought this was insanity, not psychic ability. I grew up in a family that doesn't believe in that sort of thing. I basically thought that was insanity and started to switch off to these gifts and ignore it. Then all of a sudden, these spirits that were trying to communicate with me, they must have got frustrated because they became really negative. When I was about 9 years old, I was a latchkey kid. I used to walk home from school because it was literally 2 minutes away from home, let myself in and entertain myself until my parents came home to cook dinner. One of my ways I used to entertain myself is I used to go upstairs and jump on my bed because I wasn't allowed to do it while they were in the house. Yeah, so one day I'm in the house all alone, 9 years old, Walkman in, listening to Meatloaf because I used to love Meatloaf when I was a kid, jumping up and down on my bed, and all of a sudden I feel like something shoved me in the back, Where my head snapped back like whiplash snapped back, yeah, and I flew off the bed. My headphones flew off, and I heard this voice going, "Just keep pack it in," which is basically Yorkshire slang for just in stop it. I absolutely went drip white, was terrified, ran down the stairs and hid. And I would not go back upstairs alone again while I was a child. In fact, if I needed to urinate, I'd urinate outside behind the bins or something. I literally wouldn't go upstairs again as a child. Yeah. So, anyways, again, parents said that was a load of rubbish. It's not actually there. It's not actually happening. And there were times it would terrorize me. It'd give me nightmares, and I'd end up screaming, and my parents would run into my room, and these nightmares felt real. They felt absolutely real. And there was always an ominous, oppressive presence around. So that was quite an eerie experience as a child. And one of the things that cemented that ghosts are real in my mind, that spirits exist and ghosts are real. Throughout my life, I've had various other spiritual occasions as well. Like when I worked in the city of Bradford, for example, there were a couple of old buildings there I've worked in that I've had spiritual occurrences in. One of them was when I worked for my mum in a place called Britannia House. I was a cleaner. I was there at 5 a.m. Often her staff used to come and talk to me to try and find out where she was and what she was doing. So I felt a presence, and I thought this was just one of these people. So I carried on working, expecting them to come up and tap me on the shoulder and ask me a question like they usually do. Nothing, but there's still a presence there. So I turn around, and there's nothing there. So I carry on doing my stuff. And as I'm doing my stuff, yeah, I hear something move. So I carry on and act like I'm ignoring it, but I turn my head slightly. So my peripheral vision is looking over in the direction of the noise. And there's like some sort of shadow of a person darting around, walking about, like moving. I go over there and it's gone. As soon as I turn my head to look at it, it's gone. And I go over there and I stand and I look at the light, and I'm trying to make my shadow cast in the same way that shadow was moving, to try and debunk it, to think, was it something that was catching the light? Was it the angle I was stood at? No, couldn't replicate it. Couldn't replicate it at all. And then I knew it was a haunting, because after that, after I'd noticed it was there, again, I started to get the flashes. And it was giving me like images of me doing certain things. These weren't that bad though, to be honest with you. And it was also giving me the whispers and stuff like that, giving me the whispers and basically telling me certain things and stuff like that. It appeared, even though it was a shadow creature and inherently negative, it appeared to appreciate me there, because one of the things it said is the staff are pigs, and I was a cleaner, so I'm guessing it liked the fact I was a cleaner. Didn't really leave me feel threatened or all. I did feel a bit heebie-jeebied, but it didn't really leave me feel threatened or all. So that was an experience I had there. And just before I got into Magick, when I moved in with my first baby mama, we had a haunting there. We used to argue a lot. It was quite a toxic relationship, to be honest with you. And one year, and this is the year I actually started Magick. It's just the year before, basically, Christmas. So it's the end of the year before I started Magick. So this is Christmas, like 2012, 2013. We bought the children a load of toys, and these toys had no batteries. And me and Vicky had an argument over something. I can't remember what it was about now. But we slept, and I absolutely kid you not, at 3:33, so 3:33, yeah, all of the toys lit up and started screaming and making noise, to the point where I unwrapped them all and checked them all, unwrapped them all, opened the boxes and checked them, and there were no batteries in any of them. What had happened is the spirit that haunts that house had fed on our negative energy and decided to feed it all back into the toys to punish us for rowing and toxifying its space. That was the spirit of a little girl, and when I actually started embracing my spiritual path and training my psychic senses, I actually communicated with her, and she told me it was because she doesn't like arguing. Yeah. So these are all the spiritual experiences I had myself before I got into voodoo. And this is going to lead you into my story and my origin story. You see, at this point, when I was with my first baby mama, I wasn't quite cage fighting anymore. I was an ex-cage fighter. So I was trained at cage fighting and trained at combat jiu-jitsu. I had a firearms license. And I was also very strong and very fit, because I did a lot of weight training and a lot of running. Had 4 dogs. We used to run and we used to hunt and all sorts of stuff all the time. So I was very physical, and I feared nothing that could be killed anyway. The only thing that I feared was spirits, So bear that in mind, yeah? The only thing I feared was spirits. Now, bear that in mind as I go into my story. So, fast forward 2014, my son's born, yeah? Bless him, Logan, apple of my eye, yeah? My best boy. He was born, yeah? And I was celebrating his birth with Vicky's, my ex-baby mama, Vicky's brothers, yeah? We got absolutely annihilated drunk. We got stupid drunk. There's a supermarket round the corner from where she lives that sells discount beer. We got annihilated, yeah. And I went to bed about 3 o'clock in the morning. Went to bed about 3 o'clock in the morning, yeah. While I'm asleep, I start to have this feeling of tingling and electricity and vibrations all over my body. And it was almost uncomfortable. Do you know, like when someone gets you one of those jolt buzzers or something like that, or you get a mild shock, not quite like taser power, but just like enough to be uncomfortable. It felt like that. And I could feel like this rising within me, like something within me was rising out of me. And as I could feel it rising out of me, it also felt like it was sticky. So it felt like something, like when you're separating something that's stuck together, or when you're trying to separate Velcro, it's coming apart, but there's a resistance there. Kind of felt like that, yeah? Or when you're pulling two magnets apart, kind of felt like that. And as it came further and further out, it eventually came all the way out, and then I was above myself, and I realized what happened then is my soul had left my body, and I'd entered into what was an induced astral projection. This astral projection was induced by Baron Samedi. So he pulls me out of my body, yeah. I don't even notice him there at this point because I'm not that terrified that my soul's left my body because I think I'm dead. That I look back and I see myself lying there, and I think, damn, I'm dead. I've drunk that much that I've thrown up in my sleep, choked on my vomit, and now I've suffocated. I'm dead. And in the corner of the room, I just stare. So I look over to the corner of the room, and there is a skeletal man in a suit with a top hat. Yeah. And seeing a skeletal figure and seeing him dressed like an undertaker kind of made me feel that he was here on behalf of the Grim Reaper or something. Because remember, I'm not a trained voodooist yet, so I don't know who he is. Yeah. So I say to him, "Are you here for me?" And he says, "Yes." And I've got a very expressive face sometimes, so I didn't see myself, but I can imagine my face dropped and I looked terrified because he started going, "Relax." And I was like, "How can I relax? I'm dead." And he's like, "You're not dead." And I'm like, "But you just said you're here for me." And he's like, "I am here for you, but you're not dead. There are great things in front of you, things that are indescribable to you at the moment. And you can experience these things and learn what come with them if you like." And I was like, "And what are these things?" He's like, "Mysteries from the other side, things about how the universe works, how to manifest what you need in life, how to make changes to life. Not everything is preordained. You can reach out and manifest and make changes." And I'm like, "Really? How do I do this?" And he goes, "I can help you do this, and I can show you how to do this, but you have to leave your fear behind." And then he stretched out his bony hand. And me, for 1 minute, thinking, this is a spirit, and I'm intimidated by things that can kill me, pretty frightened of them. So he's telling me to leave my fear behind. But something in my instincts, something deep down inside me, told me I could trust this spirit, and told me that if he wanted to hurt me, he could have done that easily already by now. So I took his hand. And when I took his hand, he automatically, we was out of the room. We disappeared. We were floating somewhere. Yeah. And then we ended up in what I believe was Haiti. And the reason I believe it was Haiti is because there appeared to be Haitians around. And what I mean by Haitians is Afro-Caribbean people that seem to speak French Creole. Yeah, so I believe we were in Haiti. And he was showing me what a fete was. And he was explaining to me what a fete is and the purpose of that particular fete that I was witnessing. Yeah, and then he clicked his fingers and we were in Africa. And now I know this is Africa because he referred to it as the birthplace of voodoo. Yeah. And then he turned around and says to me, do you know what Vodou is? And I didn't associate Vodou with voodoo at the time. So I was like, no. And he goes, Vodou simply means just to work with the spirits. And I was like, okay. And he clicked his fingers again. And we were in some sort of classroom setting where he starts teaching me and telling me about things, telling me what's possible, telling me that he has been here for centuries and that he has seen a lot and he has manifested a lot and he has helped, what he said, bring up many a sorcerer before. He also told me that the Lua, so the spirits of the voodoo, yeah, he also told me that they have a specific restriction where they're only supposed to speak to people who are initiated or had their roads open. However, in his own crass colloquial way, he said, but fuck that shit. I don't stand on ceremony. I will speak to who I want and I will invite who I want. And I was like, okay, this is really interesting. We went through a teaching process for what seemed like a very, very, very long time. Very long time. It seemed like days. And in between this teaching process, we're smoking, we're drinking. He's showing me things. He's giving me examples. He showed me the realm of the dead. So he showed me the more. He showed me the Gide, not the Gide lords and ladies that are famous, but the actual Gide, the unclaimed dead. And I got a glimpse, only a peek though, into the world of the malevolent dead. However, at my current skill level, I wasn't quite ready to handle that one yet. So I only got a little peek there. Although something tells me I'd have been quite safe. Now I know who that spirit was. So what happened after this period of education, where he was teaching me about everything and showing me everything and imparting all this knowledge on me and like really selling the concept of this spiritual path to me, he just disappeared. He disappeared. I slammed back into my body. I mean, I literally full on saw earth, the sky, the roof of my house, my body, bam, slammed straight back into myself and woke up. And I thought, crap, they must be worried about me. They must have thought I was in a coma. I was gone for days. I looked at my phone and it had only been 8 hours. Only been 8 hours, but I was with Baron Sandy days, maybe even weeks. It had only been 8 hours. So I didn't know this was Baron Sandy yet. So I begin to join every witchcraft group I can think about. Every witchcraft group I can think about, and I start to try and find him. Now, one of the things he said to me before he left me, yeah, almost left it out, is that I asked how would I learn more? And he said, don't worry, I will find you a teacher. Yeah. So this, when I came back to Earth, like I said, this kind of inspired me to look for this teacher, to put myself out there, to say I'm open and available and ready and wanting to be taught. So I joined a crap load of witchcraft groups, a load of voodoo groups, a load of hoodoo, root work, whatever groups I could think of, because I found out from a Google search that Vodou is voodoo. Yeah. Right. So I joined all these groups and I started talking to the peoples. And then I had a few people hit me up, Nigerian scammers, basically, calling me beloved and telling me they could teach me the path of Ifa, which is African voodoo. And then when I asked them to talk to me about it, they were being rather racist and saying to me that the path of Ifa is about playing certain races off against each other. And I was like, screw that. I ain't like hating on my own race or any other race, man. Screw that. I don't want racism. Anyways, they wanted $400 or $500 a month for the pleasure of teaching me this system that they evidently didn't seem to be that successful at because they look dusty and poor as fuck. And then my teacher, who wants to be known publicly as the name Mambo Mama Midnight Asogwe because she doesn't want her real name out there. My teacher approached me in my inbox, and to be honest, I almost dismissed her and cussed her out. Because after dealing with a couple of scammers and people just demanding money, and after being racially abused by several people who told me I was quite frankly the wrong colour or race to be practicing this, I was fed up. And then she said, hey, I'll teach you voodoo. And I said, oh yeah, do you know voodoo? And she said, yes, I do. I'm a Mambo from the Asogwe sect. When I was like, okay. And I said, first of all, expecting her to be a scammer, I said, how much? And she said, nothing. The Lua will pay me. They've already promised me. And I was like, okay. This lady might be nuts. I have had a couple of crazy people also come forward to me and try to chat bubbles to me. So I was like, okay, I thought, test it out. Test it out. Don't judge, test. Yeah, so I went, okay, let's do this. So she started giving me information about each lure. Yeah, and this information seemed to correlate and seemed to be correct with whatever I could glean online and from other people who practiced the craft. Yeah, this information was right. So that was one tick in the box. Yeah. Next tick in the box is she seemed to be extremely aware of the processes and what they were called and how to carry them out and the visualizations you should be seeing, basically the practicality of things. She seemed to be very aware of that, whereas when I'd encountered other magicians before, they were very good at the book side of things and discussing things, but actually doing it, they didn't. So they didn't know that level was missing. That made them bad teachers because they're just readers and doers. So they've got knowledge, but no wisdom because they haven't applied that knowledge. But she had. So that was another tick in the box. But the third tick in the box, yeah, and this is when Papa Smoke was known as a spiritual badass going forward, yeah. This is when I got my confidence. This is when I got my guts. And this is when I realized voodoo, especially the spirits of the dead, is not something to be fucked with. Yeah. Of course, my final bit of proof came from somebody, a friend of mine, who approached me. And this was before I was professional. So I did this for free. And she asked me if I would do a curse to a people trafficker who had unalived her Mexican cousin. Her Mexican cousin had been lied to and illegally trafficked into the USA as a, how can I say this, adult worker against her will. She thought she was going to have a regular legal job and not be sold to men, if you understand what I'm trying to get at without getting in trouble online for this. And she escaped, and basically he got her addicted to all sorts of horribleness. She escaped, and he chased her down, and he unalived her with a pew-pew, but he got away with it because they couldn't find the pew-pew or link him to her in any way, shape, or form. Yeah? So, the family find out, and they hit me up and get me to do this job. I do this job to him, and I shit you not. The person who had unalived the lady had a car crash, and he had a brick of nose candy in the back of his car. So they got him for that. So he was already going to prison. Yeah. The car was stolen and unregistered. And he was a felon with previous convictions carrying a registered firearm, which happened to be the firearm he unalived her cousin with. So he got done for all of it, game, set, match, and got sent to a high security penitentiary. Now, this Mexican lady, she might not have been a somebody in terms of the criminal underworld, but her family were. And it turns out some of her family were members of a very prolific gang from Mexico, so large I'm not even going to mention their name because I don't want to risk them taking offense. And they found out about it, and this person in prison who'd done this to her got savagely attacked to the point he was almost dead. And because this gang is so large and have a presence in almost every prison in America, as well as nearly every state, he's now stuck on solitary confinement because it's not safe for him to be out in Gen Pop. Yeah. That is when I realized how powerful this is, how real my teacher was, and what I'd been given access to. And that's when I became the Papa of Smoke, baptized in fire. Y'all know the name. I'm the Papa of Smoke. Y'all know my game. My mojo's no joke. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, which ain't a right lot. And if you'd like more Black Magic story time, let me know in the comments. Peace.